Hey guys, so this is what, third episode that we are recording?
Probably, yes.
Yes, perfect. So in the previous episode, I think we discussed the fast and mail, the how the
Hmm.
entities account, rig, some of the concepts. So I wanted to start with the fast and mail status, right?
Right.
Um, so fast and mail, we have been working in. So we have a 0.5 folder
Hmm.
in our repo. So which is, um, I'm not sure whether it will become 0.5, but it is more like an experiments related to 0.5 where we are proving design and proving things, right? So um, uh, 0.5 contains that mail thing now, and we have done in a reasonable. So the thing is, see, this is the first non-trivial feature or whatever where AI has largely built the feature for us, right? Like if you see the history, almost in the entire of Aston Mill, I have been driving it, and the thing is, key. Um, the quality is still very questionable, right? I have seen a lot of code, but normally when I do code review, I usually would have done code review of 100 lines in a day or 500 lines a
Yeah.
day. Like here, I have done code review of 5,000 or something like so. So obviously, even my own confidence in my own code review has slightly is down, right? Like
Hmm.
obviously, the good thing is that it's extensively tested. So that's like something which is giving confidence. We have done a bunch of refactors, PRs, or code change where we are just trying to improve the code quality. So we've seen, so for example, to achieve fast and like we were facing a bunch of like networking related issues. P2P, like when we build a system. So we have like a SMTP server, and then we have a P2P layer, and
Right.
then we have an IMAP server, right? So this is what we have built. And then there's a storage module which stores the content of the mails on the file system and also in database, right? So we have a folder and then a SQLite database for every mailbox. So this is done. Now, P2P, so SFTP was the easiest to build for us. So I built it, it almost just kind of worked. We have not tested it. Or rather, all the testing that we have done is through. So, so we have created a Fasten Mail crate
Hmm.
just to organize code. So Fasten Mail contains some sort of a bunch of CLI utilities for interacting with SMTP and IMAP. So normally you could use your real client or you can write custom code. So I thought and it did help improve our testing, obviously. So there are a bunch of utilities, and through them we have done these utilities are internally using. So for SMTP, we are using LETTRE letter crate, which
Uh-huh.
is
Yeah.
good. SMTP is conceptually simpler, also just kind of one method to just send a mail.
Yeah.
Uh, IMAP के लिए we are using something. So letter crate has good reputation and good whatever, but for IMAP, I think we are using some crate called IMAP util or something. Like it's I never heard of this and stars are not high. And I have no idea how good IMAP like standard compliant or whatever. Like
Not many
I,
people have used it.
exactly, and IMAP is very what is called
Yeah.
complex, right? So it has a lot of methods, and they also have weird signature and status code when you join, when you accept. Actually, that's true for anyway. So it's just
Hmm.
more complex than so. Um, so current state. So I was giving an example of code quality,
Yeah.
which is when we are building when we built this whole thing, and rather we actually started with just P2P testing. So from day one, P2P testing was kind of like iffy. It was unreliable. We would always start doubting, oh my God, IRO itself is broken, and it will always be our code issue. Okay. So and only confidence was Malai. Okay,
Hmm.
you just run Malai and Malai is working fine. So obviously our code. So, and we look at the code, like what is going on. Like, why is this call blocking or not? Like timing out because there must be some pattern we are following in Malai source code which we are not following here. And even for me, who has written the code, I don't remember what was that, right? Because it took a lot of iteration to come up with that working code that we have in Malay. So we were hoping to just reuse it. So we did do that, what is called fastn-net crate. We created a fastn-net crate and which is actually Malai utils, which we imported to fastn without having a like a repo dependency for whatever reason. Simply because I was actually going to change also some, so just copied them, and so the second is so when I wrote code with Malai Net, so fastn-net was good in the sense that it did improve our Malai code quite a bit, but it was still pretty verbose. If you go and read the code, I realized, and there was not problem was not verbosity. Problem was that there were a lot of things that you had to be really careful to do right in the right order and so on. If you don't do exactly right, then it kind of whatever. So I created when we were really debugging the P2P issue, we were not getting that level of confidence, and then I created an abstraction called fastn P2P, where I actually just locked down, like I just studied the how we are doing all of P2P in our entire code base, which is basically everywhere we are using fastn-net. And then I created a fastn P2P crate, which is extremely just like two functions, right? Like it just this is the only two things you need to do. You need to listen, right? So you are waiting for, and that was a very non-trivial change because earlier what we had was a loop inside loop. So like there's a outer loop which is waiting for connection, then there's an inner loop which is waiting for streams on that connection, and inside that loop we would write some function which is our business specific logic. So for every Malai, in every distinct use case, you'll learn the business logic would be different. So how do you structure it? You have to put the two loops. That two loop itself used to be a problem because sometimes the error, if you put a question mark in a loop on the first error, network error, it might return, right? So that those kind of issues we are facing. So I converted it into a stream interface and use Rust async stream feature, future stream feature or whatever that you call it. So and that remove that double loop to into a simple listen. So when you do a listen, you have to just do a loop and you keep receiving the thing that you need, right? So it's significantly simplified our code. Similarly, when you're doing the client side thing, again, there is just one thing you want to do, or rather two things. One is you want to just do a JSON request response. You want to connect to a peer, send some JSON, receive some JSON back, and that's it, right? Like that's your entire. And then the second mode is you want to connect and then you want to receive the string. So kind of like these are the two use cases. So we have created very nice fastn P2P abstraction, which takes these two all these use cases that we discussed. So and that was very magical because I just merged, like I asked it to remove all instances of fastn-net and just convert everything to fastn P2P. And our like peer-to-peer portion of mail has been working reliably since then. Like one commit, which was a very big refactor, eliminated that entire unreliability because obviously, and that's why like I love Rust, right? Like it's so good at creating these boundaries and the abstractions that they have, like the stream abstraction. So far this is actually the first time I'm using stream in my life, where I felt like I need stream. I felt like like every time I've used stream is because the library is forcing me to use stream. I have no idea what stream does. It wants a stream, I'll create a stream. But I never felt like my problem requires a string, and it did actually simplify my code. And so it's a great abstraction. Basically, those guys, I did not understand the problem for which string was created, and I understand very happy kind of like and so what I'm trying to say is that the code quality can't be garbage because we did this kind of stuff and this kind of but again, just brain wise, I've just not spent weeks and weeks on every design that I do normally. So anyways, so fastn mail ka current status is this, that it kind of works on through CLI testing. So end to end works mean I send a mail, I create a mailbox, I send a mail, it goes to my sent folder, and then the peer whatever is there, they receive it, it goes to peer's inbox folder, and on this side or on both sides we have SMTP and IMAP server also starting up, and you can send a mail through SMTP, and obviously that's how we are testing all of this thing. You're sending it through SMTP and then checking the folder status through IMAP, and now So this works, but for script, so what I realized was that there's a lot of IMAP commands.
Yeah.
So for example, getting a list of folders, even the list of mails inside the folder, what you return was very complicated. Like it depends on client or not depends on client, but it's much more complex than what we were returning. Earlier, we were just returning the same mail as, I don't know, some, like what I'm trying to say is key, initially the subject that used to show up in the mail, it didn't show my subject. It only showed to and from, and then we did some more change and then started showing my subject. So what I'm trying to say is it had to extract and then there was a so it showed me the list of mails, but when I double click on it, it shows me a blank window. So then I have to go and so basically it was calling some. So after list view, it calls some sort of individual UID view or whatever ID view, unique ID view.
Yeah.
So it is more data about that email when you click on that double click on it. So that, for example, that one was we were not calling basically. We so far data testing we did was just whether the email is getting dropped in the inbox folder, and I like done, right. So obviously now when we started using it in real time, one thing that happened. Uh, वो बंद कर दिया। चलो सर, वो बंद कर दिया। Meeting. Sorry. So turns out that Thunderbird and Apple. I'll tell you some more testing about this thing about automation. So Thunderbird, we started. Yeah, first we started CLI, then we started with Thunderbird, and obviously mails folder list is showing up. You can see the mail. You can double click on the mail, and you can see the mail content. We've reached that stage, and so there but then when we were doing more testing, it was very slow, and because I need to keep on redoing the whole thing from scratch, and it was very annoying. So I thought, I'll use Apple Mail because it is Mac, and probably Apple Mail is easier to script than Thunderbird. So I then kind of asked it to write a bunch of Apple scripts to automate mail, but it didn't really end up going anywhere. So I spent a day on that and didn't go anywhere. And so I'm dropping that, and I'm thinking of going back to completely manual Thunderbird testing. So if you are available to me, that is the task I would like uh, assign to you. If you are almost there, Thunderbird में सब कुछ हो गया है. I think we have some other IMAP related functions which are missing. So you'll have to see the logs, see what Thunderbird is calling, and so if you finish the IMAP implementation that Thunderbird wants, we can kind of launch it more or less, right? Like obviously we'll have to do security review and all sorts of pre-launch activity, but at least the POC work types, right? Like we are there, not launch ready, but so okay, so that is the status of mail, and we'll discuss more later. In the meanwhile, so I'll give you the context here because this is almost like a brand new session. So we are creating some sort of like a feature called, we started calling it Malai SSH.
Yeah.
Basically, but then we realized after designing the whole thing, this is what Malai is all about. So instead of calling it Malai SSH, we're just calling it Malai, basically. So this I wanted to take you through this, like what was that design and how did I arrive at this,
Right.
and then we are with respect to this Malay SSH, right? So so funnily, it started from a flight I was taking, and I did not have access to cloud, or so for 2-3 hours I was like, what do I do with my life? And started writing the design for something I like bored with what I was doing. So code. So SSH is a very logical kind of thing. And now one question is, why do you even need SSH? Because you can just use what is called TCP this thing, and so you can technically do that. But then how do I say? Um, it's the UX is not great, right? Like
Yeah.
on the inside, you'll have to first use Malai on that machine to bind that port, and then do that SSH command. And the other problem is key, obviously, which Tailscale solves for us is key authentication or ACL, etc. Right? I don't need to share my password, sorry, SSH keys with you. So, like, I can give you SSH access to my server, without giving you or without worrying about key. Like this is all just happening in some configuration. So that's like pretty brilliant because you and that lets you create groups and stuff. So you can take this policy key, okay, on this machine, I want the DevOps team to have be able to SSH or be able to SSH from that other machine, right? So it's a pretty sophisticated, nice solution. And obviously doing setting it up all through SSH and using this port forward, like it felt like I'll not be able to do that. And obviously I thought Malay SSH could exist. So now the solution was we'll run some sort of Malay SSH on the server and so on. Now in our so the on and so on. Let's focus on that and so on the design actually. So I created a concept of a cluster. So you will run Malay cluster in it to create a new cluster. So there would be a Malay home. So in Malay home, there would be a clusters folder. So when you create a new cluster, you'll have to give it an alias like Fifty or Amity or whatever, right? So inside the clusters folder, the alias corresponding a folder would be created, and inside that, an ID 52 file would, or whatever the identity would be created in that machine. So there is that, and then there is some sort of like a config file, cluster configuration, ACL, whatever you call it. So in the cluster configuration file, let's say, and then there's a cluster in it. Sorry, Malai, I'm calling those guys machine for that matter. So in my head, there is cluster and machine. So machine join cluster.
Okay.
So, and cluster itself is also a machine. So some sort of. So so you also have Malai SSH machine in it, which will allow any machine to become a machine, which is equivalent to just creating your SSH key. So it has created your client basically. So machine in it is just your client. Now, obviously, if you want it to also act like a server, actually machine does both. So basically ACL decide whether you can do or not, but it will start listening. So like the moment you create a new machine, it will start listening for that. It's like effectively every month on every machine, you have a SSH server running effectively. And obviously that is optional for you. It's not required. So you can still use the client without that. Um, so, but again, like what I'm trying to say is as a Malai is a kind of like a Swiss knife kind of philosophy. So you can set it up in a lot of configurations. So let's not think about all possible configurations. Just think about the recommended configuration. So the recommended configuration would be this: on your laptop, let's say on your server, you install Malai, and on one of them you will create a mark it as a cluster, and then every machine which is in your, let's say, for example, for fifth try, we have so many machines that we need SSH access on. So we'll go and install this thing, what is called Malai on those machines and run the daemon, which will, and then basically the code I have written is the cluster can sync its configuration. So all configuration changes happen on the cluster. So all, and that will get synced to the machine. And that would be the basically I just borrowed the Tailscale ACL file, right? Whatever. So and that's kind of probably what they are doing, right? Like copying the ACL files to each of the nodes in your infrastructure, and so therefore they can operate offline also, even if the coordinator is down for a while. So or rather, that's how I designed. I don't know what Tailscale really do on this in this situation. So most likely they would also be doing that at the common sense thing. So what was I saying? So so now I have terms like cluster or other cluster manager, and then terms like machine, and then configuration is syncing, and obviously you can run SSH command or any command through that. We don't yet support stream, so we only support request response. So you can like give it a command and it will run it on the other machine and it will return you the response. So Malai exists as a daemon and a CLI. So Malai SSH machine name, and we also have implemented some aliasing feature. So when so you can give your own personal. So there are some aliases that is coming from the one cluster. So for example, the cluster itself, let's say, is called peptide, but I might call it FT on my machine. So I allow you to alias the cluster, and then let's say on the in the FT cluster you have machines, right? So let's say there's a machine called, let's say, my Kulfi server. So now I will access Kulfi server using Kulfi server.ft. So that will become my like identity, and then inside that, most likely, if I want to do an SSH command, this is what I'll do. Malai SSH Malai server.ft space, let's say ls or whatever, and what is called. We also want to support HTTP and TCP services on that machine. So either the cluster. So currently, wrongly, I feel like I'm not happy with this design. So current design is this: the cluster only. Let's say on that Malai server, I'm running 3 services. 2 of them, let's say I'm running a MySQL server on that, and let's say I want to access that MySQL from my machine for some reason. It's just, don't worry about security. These are, let's check if this is safe. So now in your Malai cluster configuration, you can say that, okay, when Malai SSH is running on, let's say, Malai server, it will auto export or whatever this port basically over P2P. So basically, we Malai TCP we internally call for that, or Malai HTTP we internally call. So expose the HTTP or the TCP services, and then from my this thing, and I can give those service a name in my configuration file. So in my cluster configuration file, it's a toml file. So you just say what is called, let's say, Malai server dot Django, and let's say you say port is whatever 8000, and now suddenly I can access this on my local machine by going to Django dot Malai dash server dot ft dot localhost in my browser.
Yeah.
So just, so if you're running on port 80, so the request will go to our Malai server, Malai client, for which is running on my machine, and that will then see the HTTP request path, and then it will know what is the full. So, and for everywhere I have mentioned, let's say the alias where I've said you can use Malai server .ft. You can also use, because Malai server has an ID 52, so you can just use the ID 52.ft also. Sorry, ID 52.localhost also. So basically, the identifier that you're using, there's some like nuance there. Like there's some, it's almost like our CLI, it's like a very complicated, because you are constantly changing what you're trying to access. So we need a clean language, as clean as possible. So there's some aliasing, etc. features are also kind of there. Now there's a design file which mentions all of those features. Not all of them are implemented, but README tells you what all is implemented. So Malai SSH, the stream itself is not implemented because we only do request response mode right now. We don't open, like you can't yet do it to get the shell access on the server. You can run any command on the server and see the output of that, but it will be sent to you as one response. It will not streamed it to you as, which is what SSH behavior is. Right? So anyway, so this is where we are. Important thing is we have concepts like cluster manager, and machine. And we have done some automated testing with DigitalOcean. I have done my laptop and DigitalOcean Droplet talking to each other over P2P. It kind of works. And then I tried it on CI, but it didn't work on CI. So GitHub doesn't allow. So our P2P, none of the P2P actually works from inside. So that would be our killer, by the way. For whatever reason, how do I say, Tailscale? Because Tailscale works on GitHub CI. So our system will, I don't know, actually, is that really true? What it is? It didn't work for me for some reason. Let's pretend I did not debug that. So it didn't work for some reason. So basically, my machine to DigitalOcean was working P2P, but same thing, CI to DigitalOcean was not working. So then I asked today morning, I asked, well, let's create two droplets so that at least we prove two machines are talking to each other in CI. That also has a cron job, so we will run it every Monday. So because it might even break because the IRA infrastructure is down, because we are not just dependent on our code. But I always fear that what if some IRA breaking release comes and we miss it, and Kulfi is either Kulfi working? We should check Kulfi bridge, etc. Also, like write a small Kulfi bridge test so it runs on every Monday at least. Because anyways, so now let's try to quickly talk about the new design and new whatever. So one question that I had and I discussed with you also on Monday, I think previous day or somewhere. How are we? Because we are now talking about two different designs. So fast and Malai. Let me recap. Sorry, fast and mail. Let me recap. So fast and mail has a concept of an account, and then inside account you can create any number of email inboxes. Let's say. There's a default one that gets created for you, every account that gets created. And then we have a concept of device, which we have not yet implemented. But in the larger scheme of things, the fast-end design that we have has a concept of a device and auto merge and so on. So, but we are not like building and launching, and nothing is related to mail. On the fast-end side, on the mail side, we also have a concept called a rig. Now, rig is weird. I don't know whether it's properly named. So, to me, rig is like a thing which matters. So, when you run fasten, you actually fasten mail any CLI, any testing you do. Actually, you run fasten rig space serve or whatever. So, the fasten mail is actually implemented inside the rig. So currently, what fasten is? Currently, fasten is just a HTTP server, but not when you run fasten. So, when you run fasten, there is nothing. Fasten just shows you an error message and help message, and then ask you to run fasten serve or something. Fasten serve is the main thing, but we are not ever going to. We were never going to make fasten serve faster. We were never because fasten is not fasten serve. Fasten serve is something, a utility available to you if you want to use it. So that's what we. By the way, this is I'm talking about from day one. I never was going to merge fasten serve into fasten. Like it's not key default HTML. So I had a lot of other this thing. So a few ideas have come. I'll spend some try to give a summary of them. So anyways, so we have a concept of a rig, which is what is going to become faster in future. But which poses a question: what the hell is rig then? Right? Like rig becomes a mysterious entity, which is the essential fasten. So it'll be like, what the fuck? Right? So the rig is responsible for. So rig is also an entity, meaning that it listens. It has an ID 52, whatever key pair it has, and it what is called listens on IROB peer-to-peer protocol. So you can talk to rig through peer-to-peer. Rig has. So when you create an account, how do you create an account? The only way to create an account is to create an account. You need a rig. So rig is a thing which is running, which is like a service, which is like a store or database or whatever you call it. It's like rig is the thing. Like MySQL, the MySQL server is the thing, or Django, like the thing is the rig, which is what I am saying is fasten. So therefore, it is fasten. So so fasten account needs fasten running. That is what how we will the language will use in future. Currently, we are calling it. It has fasten rig running because it's not released, and it's that's how the code is structured right now. So fasten rig is fasten. Just mentally, if you translate, then you'll say that fasten runs as a daemon on your machine. So that's the new fasten design that we are going towards. Obviously, fasten has peer-to-peer server, so it has to run as a daemon. There is no ifs and buts about it. Like now, whether we have a single daemon for fasten or we have a daemon for fasten mail and a different daemon for Malai, at least in this world, we are talking about two different daemons. So that is one problem. Yeah, on all my laptops and everywhere, I'll have to set up two daemons. But the biggest problem is where I really was forced. So the thing is, there are two different kind of networks. Malay network has a different concept, and fastn. So far, you can argue fastn mail doesn't really expose yet fastn any other service. So
Yes.
you can, but in future, all sorts of things are coming on the fastn. So the whole document and all of that, right? So
Mm.
so architecturally, we will have to create like install two apps, Malay and fastn. And the thing is, all fastn most likely the future we are looking at is all those Malay servers that you're exposing to your team, which is what the whole point of cluster and joining. Like, what is the point of cluster and joining, right? Like, you'll create a cluster for your company or a family or your college or whatever, right? Like, and then you will invite all the people by asking them to create a machine, and then you help them join the cluster. And by joining the cluster, they can SSH to each other if they really care, but they are not really going to care about that. That's not the reason, because one of them, any one of them actually can run a server which would be basically a fastn server
Mm.
and give some functionality. So for example, let's say if I need to run some sort of wiki, or if I want to run some sort of chat, or if I want to run, like, so as a company, I'm talking about what Fifth wants to run some sort of, that's where mail comes in. Let's say fastn wants to run mail. Where does it run it, right? So therefore you run fastn mail. So what is exposed through Malay is fastn, is basically what I'm trying to say. Most important thing that we are exposing. We can totally expose a HTTP, arbitrary HTTP server, sure. But we have earlier multiple times discussed that most people cannot run Django on their infra. Right? So if you really think in terms of, if Malay enables or P2P enables people to run their own servers, what would they run on those servers? Right? And that is key. Okay, they'll have to then learn Docker, or like today everyone just says just use install Docker. So which is where we coming at, the Docker and the app ecosystem is too complex for ordinary people, and that's where we are reinventing the fastn HTTP. Fastn HTTP exists for that thing, and then the whole application marketplace. So most people in this universe would be using fastn, and all the application would be fastn application, right? Like our chat app and so forth. So over Malay, you are exposing our fastn services only. So like, just think about really, because we are not envisaging billions of people installing Malay, right? Let's say when a college wala example diya, for
Mm.
your college will create a cluster. So when you're talking to college guys, someone will have to be a DevOps to be able to install, let's say, a Discord, like open source Discord. Let's pretend there's an open, because you're self-hosting. The whole world we are talking about is self-hosting. So my point is key, in this world, all you are running fastn. So eventually, then why are you taking Malay and then configuring Malay to start fastn at different time, and maybe you're running multiple instances of fastn, so you'll have to run multiple fastn server. That is one way to set it up, and this way there is no dependency between Malay and fastn. So
Mm.
Malay is, we know, but then we know in the best use case is very annoying, because you have to kind of keep on referring to fastn as an external command, when the reality is actually you're part of the same sort of
Right.
like a cinematic universe types, right? Like you're in the same. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry. So, so we have multiple reasons to try to combine Malay and fastn. One is
Yes.
obviously code mentality. We have to just maintain one release, one. It's just easier technically. We don't have to worry about two projects altogether with different domain, different philosophies, different end user, for all you know, right? Like, so how do we kind of, does it make sense? Is there even a design which is, like, the thing is, we can build virtually anything.
Yes.
Problem is, can you build something which is like, the goal should be always like an iPhone, right? Can you build something which is very, very simple to the end user, right? Because like we are talking P2P networking, and we are able to conceptualize huge amount of abstractions. But whether, because we want fastn to forever remain like it's a billion user product we are building, right? Like we are building fastn so that virtually everyone should be using it, right? So that's the So that with that I was thinking, how do I live it? To me it's sounding little complex. Like so far fastn, oh, it's easy for new. When I start talking about these things, it's kind of complex. And let's see. So I had done one attempt at simplifying this and merging it, and I'm going to tell you now. So in the new fastn universe, so this is how everything works. You have to install fastn and run fastn on your machine, whichever phone, wherever, laptop, Mac. And the fastn will run in like let's say, for example, if you're installing a database, it will run on one port, right, and one instance. So right, so the mental model of PostgreSQL is key on one machine, one Postgres server is run, right? It's the mental. It's not like the database is not the mental model. Mental model is the server. So that's what fastn is. So fastn is like, think about like database or PostgreSQL, right? So you will install one fastn. If you need multiple database, you will. So we have concept of multiple packages, folder, all of those stuff. Only one server running. That's like the most important thing that I want to establish. So fastn runs. Obviously, in case of iPhone, you can't have background services, so therefore fastn would be an app. And every interaction, application, every single thing will be inside that app. Because while the app is running, the whole networking stack can be up and running. So the trivialist solution is for that thing to somehow. So how will it pan out on mobile? I don't know, but at least server space, it's a simple server.
Yeah.
Now, and including Mac and Windows, right? It will be a background service, like the way tell. We might have an icon in your status tray or whatever to tell you fastn, interact with fastn, but that's the when you install it, that's what fastn, when you run fastn, internally is going to do is to create a machine. So machine we are bringing, or we can call it a device. Actually, so this is where some like I can terminology wise, I'm not 100% sure. But what I'm trying to say is that whatever was rig, right, in fastn, the previous fastn version, and or rather the design version that I just discussed, what was rig and what was machine in our new Malay version. So in the Malay universe, there is cluster and machine, and in this universe, there is account and rig. So I was trying to take these four words and try to combine them into what will happen if we put them together. So I realized that so every device is, so let's call it a device, right? So everywhere you install fastn, a device would get created.
Okay.
Right. I think let me not call it device. I think because so far every time I said this in my head, I called it machine. I'm just renaming that now that I'm. But let me not do that. Let me see what is the problem with machine. Why am I bothered by it, and then change it. So machine gets created. Let's say.
Okay.
So there would be and we are saying this is the important part. This is the most important part. There would be always a single machine on one single real device or machine or whatever. So one laptop, one machine. Right? It's like the obviously if you're running virtualization, obviously that would be effectively, or Docker even also, the inner guy would also be a machine. So it's not physically one CPU and one this thing, but logically operating system, one machine, right? One operating system instance is one machine, and that gets an ID 52 obviously. So you will have, so we'll have a fastn home. So inside fastn home, we'll have a folder called machine, and machine will directly contain ID 52. It will not have subfolders inside. This is the important decision. So machine, one machine. Now, as soon as you install fastn, you'll always get a machine. What it means now is if you run fastn serve, for example, that machine will be used and you can create a Gulfi, whatever, bridge. You will have to worry about port, etc. So forget HTTP automatically using that last portion. Machine can be used to do things, and which is where the rig came. So in rig, what can you do is create an account. So on machine, you can create an account.
Okay.
So machine. So let's say in terms of code wise, think about fastn machine as a crate. So there would be a fastn machine crate. In fact, let's start from the top. There would be a fastn daemon crate. So when you run fastn daemon will be called basically internally. You can also call fastn space daemon start or whatever. So basically all the logic of demonization and daemon would be inside fastn daemon crate. Fastn crate will remain just a caller of other crate types. So fastn will not really have any logic as we have so far. And it will call fastn daemon if you don't pass any or other daemon. So we'll have to figure out, is it just fastn space or fastn? I feel like fastn daemon is better. So, so you call fastn daemon command, you run fastn daemon, it will, and fastn daemon will run in foreground. So it is not itself going to demonize anything. It will also, you'll have to figure out operating system specific way of demonizing it. We could technically self-demonize ourselves, like just see if a process is running and just go to background or whatever, right? So we can consider, but for simplicity's sake, we will not do that. We will just run in the foreground mode, and then we'll figure out. Then what we'll do is it will rely what is called whenever you run the daemon, it will verify fastn home. It needs fastn home folder. I mean in one variable, so which will have a default value of app.dir, etc. So daemon will create that folder and it will create the machine if the machine doesn't exist. Or maybe we'll have a daemon init, a fastn init, which will create. So daemon will fail if you have not yet created an machine init. So the journey we can figure that out. How will that work? But for daemon to run, machine must exist. And and in the Malai home, daemon will create some sort of log file to make sure only one instance of the daemon is running cooperative locking. So every daemon process will cooperative try to acquire a lock. If it doesn't get an exclusive lock, it will assume key some other processes, right? So this is, by the way, better than PID. And Rust, by the way, has recently added.
Yeah, I've seen that. The try lock thing on file.
Huh?
The try lock method on files. Is that what?
So anyway, so that is what daemon will do, and then what daemon will do, it will look for. So now it found machine, so it will necessarily find machine. It will crash if it doesn't. So we are going to write code strict mode so that we are trying to crash as soon as possible, basically, as soon as we detect a single problem phase, and then other than a network problem, obviously. So so when you run fastn daemon, it will see. It will call basically. So there will be a crate called fastn machine. So fastn daemon will call some function in fastn machine to run and go and run basically. Right. So it will start a listener for the machine. So machine will start a listener. It will listen on that what is called the machine ID 52, and it will start accepting machine commands. And we'll talk about machine commands in a bit. What is going on? Then you can use fastn create account to create a new account on that same fastn instance / machine or whatever. And that is one of the commands that is available through fastn machine, machine ID 52. So you're getting it? So you can create fast account either locally by running fastn create account command. It will need fastn Malai home. And create account will need some alias or whatever. So whatever create account parameters you need to, you will have to do that on the machine, right? So it will, what it will do is on that Malai home, it will create a folder called accounts, and for each account we have to give an alias. Let's say this is a new reason. Earlier the folder name inside the accounts was after the first alias that you have. Now I am saying the folder name would have to be an alias that you have to explicitly create. Earlier the alias was your ID 52. So one account could have had multiple aliases that each account can have multiple ID 52. So we're not talking about that alias. We're talking about the alias at the whatever level. So so you can create on machine, you can create account. Similarly, on machine you can create other stuff. So that is what machine is for, to at the very least create things. So to create account, you have two ways to do that. One is to obviously just run fastn space create account, which will on that local machine create the account. But you can also pass dash dash machine equal to an ID 52.
Right.
So in that case, that instance of fastn client will communicate with this machine server over ID 52 and then run that command on this machine. Right. So you can pass the minus minus machine to a lot of fastn commands to do this on that other place instead of here.
Right.
Now, मेरा वेट करोगे आप? हाँ ये सर्व करो फिर आप हॉल पे जा सकते हैं. हाँ मैं उधर चला जाता हूँ. या आप कॉफी और पानी देते हैं. Anyways, so where was I? You can contact the machine over P2P to create the account.
Yeah.
Now, earlier, I was saying, so far what we have established, a concept of a machine and a daemon. So daemon is not an entity, machine is an entity. So entity matlab it listens on peer-to-peer. It has a, and account. So machine and account are there. So now in our current fastn mail, I realize ki putting email box or whatever mails folder inside account was a wrong decision. Okay. A better decision, another decision could be to create mailbox, call it a mailbox, and create a separate, give it a separate identity. So on separate folder. So next, so like for example, in your Malay home, sorry, fastn home, you will have a folder called accounts, and each account that you have created. So let's say I created a personal account with you. I might have created some. I'm an author. I might have created some account. So normally I'll have one account or one or. Very rarely as a person, I will not need more than one or two. One if I'm running some sort of second life. But mailboxes, let's say for a company, in case of company, account can represent either individual or a company. So it can represent a company also. So in case of individual, there is a logicality to one between account and mailbox. But in case of organization, there is no logicality to the account specific mailbox for that matter, right? What is a mailbox of fifth try? There's no like there's a Amityu at fifth try and there is no fifth try ka mailbox, right? So that itself is a nonsense to create. And then if you are so should we ever create a fifth try pe Amityu ka email account, or should the Amityu ka account should remain on Amityu's server, right? Ideally, it could remain on the server, but there would be a lot of accounts, email accounts, which are very not individual. So anyway, so what I thought of like to have a common pattern. And now let's talk about machine. And I said you can communicate with machine over something else also, right? Like over P2P internet. So who can do that, right? You need to solve the question always. Who can do this thing, right?
Right.
So now to solve the who problem, the wrong decision I took in the implementation, which ended up making our V1 much bigger, is to try to solve it at P2P level and solve it in a right level. Whereas I could have also solved it at a allowed host file level.
Right.
So I thought I will somehow centrally manage this through P2P and distribute config. I was like, forget that. Like that was too much that I tried to do. Let's do very little. What does SSH do, right? All you have to do is on a new server, allowed keys, maybe just put some keys, and it's so trivial to SSH management, right? So my Malay SSH is way more complex because I have config file and syncing happening. So I like that was all like I don't want to write that code. They are great code, but when we have bandwidth to write and test, etc., slowly. So I'm thinking of just removing that entire feature, and I'm saying okay, we'll just have allowed hosts now for now. So machine acts like a host. So allowed machines it will become. So you are simply saying, so now I am saying we can create a fastn mailbox when you run fastn, so you create a new file. So basically, in account being needed for mail is what I'm trying to dissociate. I don't want to launch the concept of account right now because it is a bigger concept than mail.
Right.
So I am saying, let me create a concept called mailbox. So you can simply say fastn space create mailbox and give it an alias, etc. And there would be a folder called Malai Home, fastn home mailboxes slash mailbox slash and whatever name you've given. And that for each across all mailboxes, we anyways run only one SMTP and IMAP ports. So our code, so basically just magically the entire concept of account goes away from. So I don't have to. So now let's talk about some release plan now, right? Like I don't want to maintain one 0.5 as a separate. That I think is not a great, like this is a great playground. It has never really meant, like I'm hoping, but I kind of, I don't know what I really thought. I didn't really pay attention or really think it through so far ahead. When we had a reasonable releasable fastn in 0.5, what will I do? I did not know the answer to that question actually when I
Okay.
started. So it was a premature, but anyway, it helped us play out, experimented a lot of ideas. And so now I am saying we will launch in 0.4 now in the main. So I'm just trying to say how much of this we promote up from 0.5 to the main this thing.
Right.
So we'll create obviously fastn daemon, which will do the basic log file and
Yes.
just run it in something, and maybe log management it will do. And then we'll create a concept of a machine, because now the SSH guy only needs machine.
Yes.
Okay. So it doesn't need the cluster, because the job of the cluster was to create a cluster. I'm saying let's forget the cluster also. Like cluster is a good idea and we should definitely do that, but allowed keys is also good enough.
Yeah.
Right. So allowed. So we will launch. So basically, I'm saying a machine to machine commands are allowed, and what commands are allowed is managed by a specific allowed host file, which will for default just allow ID 52, which is basically saying any access, because this is the typical pattern that I have. I've never done a limited access SSH server, right? It kind of is nonsense. All virtually last 15, 20 years, most of the server that I maintain, I've gotten root access. And if I ever gave you access, I think gave you root access, because I only gave you Ubuntu. I have never created non-default. Like when I installed, since I am using Ubuntu virtually, I have never created a user on my Ubuntu server which is other than Ubuntu, right? And so it's always, so I'm thinking, why bother with username and complicate? It's just whether do you have access or you don't have access, right?
Okay.
That's the simple thing. You have root access to machine or you don't have any access to that machine. That just simplification that we are doing to, and whatever, because you're running it through user, so there is already a control. So I'm not giving you root access. If you're already running fastn as root, then you are giving root access to whoever you're giving allowed to. So
Right.
be smart about it, right? So if you run some SSD and misconfigure, don't understand, and you create, then that's your problem. So, but don't. We are telling you to run it as the user that you want to give access to. First of all, so it should run as Ubuntu. So there's nothing running as root at all. Now, so that already gives you some safety over SSH, because SSH runs as root. So we hope that SSH always does downgrading its stuff, right? Like a potential SSH bug can, because it's running through as root, can screw you, whereas Malai or other fastn will not screw you, because fastn is always running as Ubuntu. So it just doesn't have that higher privilege. That's the recommended mode. That's how MySQL and all of those other databases also kind of do. So we will also kind of do. But in case of SSH, this typically not what you do MySQL, where you create a unique user. So like in case of SSH, you probably typically have only one Ubuntu username or one
Yeah.
on your server. So you run that process as that user, so that you have the right kind of. Anyway, so this is a small thing. So when talking about promoting, right, moving stuff from 0.4 and Malai, I'm not. So I've done a lot of changes in Malay main, but not released anything obviously. And so I'm going to undo all of. I'm basically going to remove that entire Malay SSH features from Malay.
Okay.
And effectively, we are merging Malay into fastn. So virtually all the ports and all the features of fastn Malay are going to go in fastn. And the tiny debate discussion that we had about
Right.
Kulfi being whatever blog, like let's just ignore that. Let's just
That's right.
simplify everything. So fastn will be like everything. That's just one thing that we are maintaining. It's just easier this way for us and to because Malay already went in lack of management, right? Like it'll happen. It's just reality of it. So you only maintain what you are running, working on currently, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so global rule. This is what we are doing right now for us. I feel, which is best decision to. So we will be promoting fast and human, and then we'll be promoting fast and machine, which will only do simple commands right now, not even give you shell. Or I'll review that code and I'll just give shell and not even command. If it is trivial to do both, I'll do both. But I'm trying to say that I'm happy to minimize what we are releasing in this. So that's the most important thing. What is our release plan? So in our so we had like hundreds of commits since the last release, but virtually all of them are in our 0.5 folder. So there's virtually no real commits on the fastn repo actually. The only thing is there one PR I'm working on where I've done the enable cache feature. So do take
Right.
a look at review it. This is the only fastn change that we have done. This is the first real fastn change that we have to think about. I think I did one tiny change somewhere else also, but that was much smaller scope. This is the first one where caching is also very critical, and
Yeah.
obviously, I we have built the history of caching is we have built the caching feature way back, and then but we didn't we built it then, but we didn't finish it. So we were around 80% done. So the caching was there, and significant performance improvement was there because of caching, but we never enabled it. So I reviewed the code, or rather, I asked AI to review the code, and it found out all the missing pieces, and it has done its level of testing or whatever. I'm also doing more and more testing. You also do that. So, but still, I don't have enough confidence to make that a default behavior. So I'm releasing the enable cache as an optional CLI flag. We do print a warning when you don't use it, so that users will learn about this new feature, and we do warn them also,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So unstable beta, whatever. So we will launch. So nothing will happen on Malay. We will. In fact, we are not even bringing any code from here to there because we are virtually rewriting because the Malay that we have written has cluster concept and cluster is the central thing. So here and machine concept here we will only bring the machine. So it's almost like a rewrite. So I'll just do the rewrite.
Uh,
And so I'll create Malay machine create. And so which one do we launch first? That is one question. So I feel like SSH is smaller.
right. Yeah.
On the mail side, we have to do IMAP. Mail is also ready the moment. So again, that totally you're not available. What's your? We'll discuss those things later on. So if you are available, so extensive testing and extensive code review. So again, for the mail also, we are going to almost rewrite because we said we will look at fast and mail. We will promote that one maybe, or you can take a look at that. Maybe we'll create a fast and mail without all the. We'll see if there's any scope of simplifying. I would rather rewrite everything from scratch to me this becomes like a great uh, prototype. The code that we going to launch is going to be real one, so that we can rewrite ourselves. So I wanted to so basically that's the current thought I have. Key SSH would be launched first, and then we will launch mail because it just not doesn't look like possible. So
Yeah.
it feels like we can launch SSH this week. So that's what I am kind of thinking about. I'm obviously going to enable cache is another thing that I want to After enable cache, so I've made up my mind that 0.4 now has to be maintained. So I'm
Right.
going to go through, review the test data, review record, and a lot of other stuff I'm going to obviously do. And for which AI is pretty good, at least answering questions is brilliant key. I wanted to discuss. So this covers the first part of the thing. I wanted
Uh,
to discuss AI. Short me, I have already discussed. We are generating code, but I'm just not getting the confidence, right? Like to release any of it. Technically, I've polluted our repo with a lot of AI generated commits. And even for things that we are taking. So I feel like we are. So I was looking at the Gen 2, I think, AI policy today they released, which is basically they're disallowing AI generated code in their repo. And I kind of agree with that. I have
are
kind
you
of,
talking about the Gen 2 Linux project?
yeah, talking about Gen 2. So So I've written a lot of AI generated code, but I feel like instituting that policy that we will not accept AI generated code. It's like since 2 months I'm exclusively being AI using AI and creating this policy sounds very counterintuitive or whatever. I feel like I don't want that policy. I'm happy with AI. But what I'm particularly wanted to discuss here is I want a refinement to that policy, which is we will do AI, but so workflow has to be this. You create a PR, obviously, but you will, and during development, you do hundreds of commits. I don't care.
Hmm.
Basically, the problem statement I'm trying to say is it's one thing to review the code and make sure the code is roughly how you would have accepted by doing the PR review.
Yeah.
But we are not reviewing the hundreds of commits, that history that is going. That history is utter garbage. Okay, it just keeps on trying so many this like, and I just kind of randomly chooses when to commit, not to, and trying to control history, commit behavior has been just full nightmare. So I just allowed it to commit in everywhere. That is just the smoothest way. Otherwise, I slow down everything and no quality improves. So the quality of commits, the quality of anything doesn't go up. If I ask it to wait for me to confirm the commit. Even that shows that itna bada commit message dikhata hai. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to delete it. I don't want to say remove it because I feel like that commit captures the work that we did in the previous. Because I have no recollection of that work. But the hope is that commit has some meaningful information. So with that assumption, I went with the current workflow, and I am trying to say we will not stick to that, or rather we will stick do that, but we'll do a final pass in which we'll rewrite the commits. So I'm instituting that in general in our PR policy we did not have. In fact, actually, I am just a general developer against commit rewrites. So there's a lot of Git tutorials about how to use those
VBS and
complicated
yeah.
things to reorder commits and bring changes up and down and blah blah. And so far, 20 years of my life, I said not worth it. Like it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of, and it leads to the ugliest thing that can happen in Git, which is like force push related conflicts. It just completely destroys my confidence in Git, like completely. Like I have no idea. So therefore, but now I am saying if we have to do AI, we have to institute exceptional like that. And I believe like companies like Google, etc., do obviously. How do I say? Institute this policy that obviously that sorry that you cannot just send your commit history. You have to break your change into smaller change
Right.
sets, and then you have to stack them in a logical order. And then
Yes.
each change. So you can argue that we are at the Google level in the sense that because even in Google, the person who are doing code review are facing the problem that I am facing, which is the amount of code that is coming their way is enormous.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have no whatever, and especially when they are bigger commits. 500 line का code दोगे review करने का, I'll just so they are like so we have to institute those policies, better workflows. And I would have found it an uh, burden for me to rewrite and do, but AI I think can do. And like if you institute, this is a policy. We are just not going to accept. So every change has to be a very, very tiny change, right? And I'm happy to for a PR to contain multiple comments. One possibility would be to just merge one commit like per PR, some sort of like, matlab, whatever change you do, you have to review and merge it to main ASAP basis. It can't be like it ek hafte se, because then when you're doing for a week, then you just accumulate hundreds and hundreds of weird commits and you keep on changing your mind. What if we did? And that's not worth preserving in the history, right? So, um, so again, so I think you got the gist of what policy we are looking at. How do we implement it? So I think with a refined policy, which improves the level of code review, right? You will not merge code unless both of us have reviewed, for example. Let's put all sorts of, basically, AI is like, we are sitting in that bike where you slightly this thing and AI just runs, right? It's like, we need brakes.
Yes.
He will just get off the bike after first doing it and like your brain is low and low. What is this bike doing? And instead of getting off the bike, I feel like we should apply a lot of brakes. And so that's the policy I wanted to discuss. I wanted to. Are you happy with the policy, right? With this, I think we can use AI. So the way I'm using AI, I don't want to use. Absolutely scary for me. Beyond like it's like a fever dream or whatever. I don't know what happened last 2 months. I have no recollection. I've been in some sort of high state or some. Anyways, you have something to say? I'm saying with this, but I do want to keep and also solve it with So with respect to policy and AI, if you are happy with, we can move to the next two.
Yeah, I would just like to say that the way you have used AI, it might be like to you as the programmer, it might seem fascinating. You might be getting the results in terms of code. The thing is, it makes it very hard for someone else to follow. Like, right, if I have to go
For me,
today and look at
not
your,
someone else, even for
yeah,
me.
even you, right? So
And
that,
even asking, it's not key. I'm not getting what my code does, or rather,
exactly,
I'm confused about what my code does. I'm getting confused about what my product does as a feature, because even the feature, I have not ran that feature
right,
enough time, because when you're developing, you run this CLI so many times that you actually verbalize every single, like if you added a new CLI flag, it took so much, like you have to modify 3 files and all of those things actually made you remember it very well. कि, okay,
exactly,
there is a new flag, but अभी क्या हो रहा है कि if I say create a flag, I don't even remember if I actually said that to AI already and it implemented it, or I just thought about it. It's like I don't
yeah,
know what does my product do. That is the saddest part. I can just not accept that reality, right? So
mm,
we have to slow down. We have to do things in a more, and everything we have to do better is basic software engineering practices. Right? Like
yes,
nothing we are inventing
yeah,
some prompt or AI related solution. They're simply saying commit messages should be fucking better, design
right.
should be pre-approved, and so on. So we will slow down, and that's the only management thing. Yes,
Uh,
I think this topic, unless we have so much, like I want to cover a few more things. So,
yeah, I do want to propose one more idea. So I
hello?
saw so there is this recent Ruby on Rails keynote by DHH where he had said that what we do in the review process is we have the implementers sign off in the PR that I have tested it, I approve the change, so I should be held accountable because he thinks that his company is filled with people with brains. So, like, you should trust him, they should be held accountable for the change. So, we should do the same thing that if I make a PR, whether it includes AI generated code or not, I should be responsible for it. Not that if it is co-authored by Claude, that should not change anything. Because at the end of the day, that PR is still made
I,
by Siddharth.
I first of all, what you're basically saying, ki if you have written some code, you are signing off that you have tested it. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
Yes. So that is definitely a, malab, it's like a common sense. Obviously,
Huh.
definitely, 100% you should do that. I in my head thought you were talking about some next level idea, which is actually we had this policy in the first company where I did software development, right? Where I was paid for. So the Gupshup, which was earlier called Webru, we always had the review was like this. So for you to send a at that time we were using Bugzilla, right? So Bugzilla was brilliant by the way. It had so many policies like you can not do this and that, like you cannot change the status from this to that. This person can do it and so on. There are a lot of complexities, but I think for maintaining large code bases and especially complex changes, right? Bugzilla complexity is needed. Anyway, so there we had this policy in the first company that we'll code goes through three-level review. So every PR में or at that time Bugzilla के issue में, you have to write a comment. And
Yeah.
that comment had this syntax where you have to say, I think, add self dash review. I think somewhere in the comment you have to mention that it is a self review. And you have to mention exactly that. How have you documented this completely? All the basic stuff, right? The questionnaire is very standard. Have you documented it? Have you tested it? Have you manually tested it? Have you communicated to blah blah? Right? And then there was this stages. Like for example, you can merge a pair, but in GitHub it is closed and open, right? But there, like merged, matlab it has gone to my CI pipeline now for testing. But
Okay.
then there like another this thing QA approved, so that PR has now QA approved status. Then it has gone to our final UAT. So now it is in UAT status. Then it is in final deployed status. Deployed के बाद में भी there was status key. Was it released? Because release was one more milestone after deployment where you update the blog post and all the release notes, etc. So I hate or bottom line is um, in the Godzilla lets you do all of that, and one was self review, and then there was a peer review. And peer review it was important thing for you to actually run it. Peer was like your level person. So I'm like I can ask each other to run code from each other. So the thing is, I will never run your code. Like I just accept it. I'm just too lazy to. And if I have to run everyone's code, I'll just go crazy. You have to set up so many environments and so on. And
Yeah.
obviously QA sometimes makes sense. If you have a QA, then let QA do all of the verification. But
Right.
because we don't have QA, and we have our automated test is not enough and minimum stuff of testing. So I feel like you are instituting the peer review policy. So that is a self review policy. So let's create a peer review, self review, and peer review. Just two of us, obviously. There we had and then there was a super review. So there was always a self review, then there was a peer review, and then super review. Super review is what was almost rubber stamping, or rather, it depends. Like if it was an architect done. Peer review was most issues we used to identify in peer review. That is basically what I'm trying to say. In the process of you and me running the tests, both of us on our machines and making sure it is correct and looking at all those questions कि जैसे तुमने बोल दिया है डिजाइन मैंने लिख दिया है तो मैं बोलूंगा डिजाइन looks like क्योंकि the other guy is doing checking all the whatever you have posted. No? Self review first comes first, which makes a lot of claims. Ki, I've updated a document, I've tested this. The peer review is just verifying ki all those claims are valid. So I have verified the documentation is good. I have verified this, blah blah. And the peer is obviously very Hitler. Because they will not give you a review unless you do
Yeah.
all jump through all the hoops. And if you look at open source, they are pretty Hitler, and we have to be Hitler, right? That's basically the reality of it. So we are all we are going to create this thing. Okay, so I'm saying if the review and AI is kind of close, I want to discuss two topics. I'm introducing concepts which will become commonplace or rather more used in future. So therefore, you should know the concept. And in my design space, these concepts have entered. So one of them is what I'm calling uh, that's simpler to explain is I'm calling it persistential. So PERSH. Okay. So this is
Okay.
just a so you will it will be on fastn-stack / PERSH, and it will have nothing to do with fastn otherwise. It's a purely independent CLI that you're writing. Right?
Okay.
It will be used by our somewhere, but through some means which might just be command. because in fastn machine we have command configuration. Very soon we'll have all those. So all the configuration that I prototype in the more complex scenario are good designed. I want them, but I don't want them in V1. So I want to slowly bring them here. So basically, what I'm saying is that we are introducing a burst. I don't know if it sounds good or not. PRSH, persistent shell. It is almost like Tmux. It's almost like screen or whatever. Problem statement is AI coding, or rather cloud coding, basically, specifically. If I want to run cloud on my laptop, I have run the limit, which is 3 for my machine on 3 different Rust projects of the complexity of fastn and Kulfi or whatever that I can run on my Mac at the same time. When I run the fourth, so basically, if I have 3 terminals open, each of them has a cloud this thing, and each of them may have given a task. It just keep on doing it. Till that, my machine works. When I start the fourth one, typically crashes. And one of them crashes at random, so I don't start the fourth one.
Right.
So it's obviously because Rust compiler is obviously compiling, and what is called, it's extremely CPU and RAM intensive. I have CLAN running, which is again very RAM intensive, and also cloud is very RAM intensive. So obviously, my performance bottleneck now is my machine. So now, obviously, how do I solve it? I can get a better Mac, or I can, get a temporary, what is called, server from somewhere, and do whatever coding on that. So I don't necessarily have to code on my laptop. I can code on a arbitrary server. So we can spin off one of these things. In fact, this idea actually, even for a moment, I thought, why don't we just launch it as a product? So imagine a command, let's call it cloud stack, like browser stack, cloud stack, but it is a CLI, and you run cloud stack instead of cloud for using cloud. When you say cloud stack login, obviously you'll do the regular stuff, login, etc. Then you'll say cloud stack space, let's say new session or new whatever. So whenever you do this new session, a new machine will be created for you in AWS or whatever. And then obviously you'll get SSH key and all of that will happen, and it will have Ubuntu installed and cloud running for you. And then you'll, through a prompt or through something, it'll probably mention some Git parameters like what is a GitHub repo or whatever. So it will set it up for you, or you can even have a Docker file. So it will install all the stuff, compiler, etc. that you need for development and give you the Docker shell access. Right? Now, all of that can work with SSH today. I don't need fastn, right? You need peer-to-peer for that. So, and obviously, we can launch it as a SaaS also for others, because we can do it for anyone. Obviously, pricing and product and marketing, blah blah, right? Whole startup shebang. Don't want to do that as a startup for simple reason that tomorrow cloud will definitely build it as a feature.
Yeah.
There is no competitive advantage I have. I'm dependent on cloud. For cloud, it might be such a tiny sum though that they may not bother, because they are taking $200 from me. For that server, it will cost me what, $20, $40 per month, out of which 90% will anyway go to AWS. They will only take a cut. They can't. Let's say double we kar dete, so it's like $40 per month. With $200 per month, $40 a month, like, I'm pretty sure they are not going to be to anyway. So, but some YC company, anyway, so we're not going to do a SaaS on it. Let's say we can do that, but we are not going to do that. Now there is a technical problem here. So in this entire thing, there's a technical problem, which is what we are trying to solve with Persh, which is which has a little bit of a deeper this thing. When you want a shell to persist, there is no good solution, or rather, the solution that you have take over your shell history, or rather current session the output of the session. So I want that session. See, normally, like, all the terminals are very poor at maintaining your session log. They just
Mm-hmm.
get it. So when you,
Yeah.
so basically the thing is, if you do it through our, so setting up a new AWS for you, for everyone who launches a session is trivial. What, and then obviously establishing a SSH key and allowing SSH and just giving you cloud. So I can make it such key, it almost looks like running cloud locally, just that it will be running on a remote machine, right? And the output would be just coming in the stream, right? Like, so, but the thing is, key, if something happens, let's say you should shut down a laptop. Now the shell, because it is happening over SSH, the connection will definitely die. Now if the connection dies, when you reconnect, now the fuck up is, do you again call it cloud? Because the shell has died, the cloud will be also killed. So
Yeah.
you will say, oh, let me just use Tmux or Screen or any such.
Yes.
The fuck up with Tmux is key. Tmux then maintains the entire history, scroll history in the Tmux session.
Yeah.
And scrolling inside Tmux is infinitely hard. In fact, scrolling cannot be solved by TUI at all. Okay? So if you try to do that, especially actually you're looking at a Mac as a client, so look at end users who are people like me. If you scroll on any native terminal, it is an extremely smooth experience. So when you are doing AI coding, the most important thing you are doing is you're reviewing the log. What was the last prompt you gave? So basically, I give a prompt, and then there is a series of activity which will include running commands, including doing
Yeah.
web searches, editing files, blah blah, right? Like running tests, seeing output, and everything I want to see exactly that sequence of things it did. So how do I do that, right? That's the problem. I do it through scrolling, right? So scrolling is the most important thing. And inside Tmux, scrolling is not good. It's not smooth. It just can't be made smooth. Okay? Because when you do swipe events, so there's no swipe in and see, right? Whatever the message is, the protocol that you have, the curses, whatever. I don't know what magical TTY thing happens.
Yeah.
So you try to do it everywhere. I've tried to use Vim, Emacs on remote server. I always face this problem. In all situations, you need very smooth scroll. Scrolling is the most, you go top to bottom and you do remote this thing, and suddenly your scrolling comes to a halt. You have to then use intelligent searching and jumping and all of that. Vim has a lot of command for that reason, but that's just a substitute for not having scrolling. So this is my thesis. If you give me cloud on server and tell me to use Tmux, I will not use Tmux. Okay. So I will continue to use because the scrolling gives that answer. Okay.
Okay.
This is the thesis for which course is, if at all. Okay. Now, how will it work? How will I magically bring back scrolling? Yes, obviously we will have a virtual TTY, so all those
Yeah.
screen, etc., give you a real TTY, and they can have any number of virtual TTYs and so on. So we will, so Perch running on the client on the server side will have a Perch folder, and all the sessions. In this case, in a Docker scenario, we are seeing only one session, but you can install Perch on a regular Linux machine, and you can just connect to it through. So Perch is a CLI. You just SSH key through, just call the. It's like Tmux. There's nothing fancy you have to do. Just call SSH Tmux, and you'll say Perch. Sorry, SSH Perch, and then either you'll give it a session ID, or you'll ask you to create a new session, and then next command onwards you'll give it a session ID. So when you so Tmux always starts. Here we are doing like a init and connect methodology. Like obviously you can say init and connect, but like I want to say there's a distinct phase of init, which creates the launches the command in the background, and all the output of that is being captured in some folder, right? So and every time you do connect, what we do is we print that entire history. The entire session from the beginning of your apt-get install, whatever the first SSH that you did, from that point till this point, because you are only running cloud there. It's not like it is and cloud has history you want. So
Right.
every time reconnect, the entire history of cloud. So from the time cloud was launched will be printed. and we can optimize it by storing Pershka local cache also. So like next time I'm re-initiating that same session, it will not re-download the what is called the whole thing from the server. It will only resume. So it knows still what it has locally. So it will keep a so TTY ka output will be cached in a file in your client side, and then you will only get the delta and uh, and you can even have some sort of push status which will tell you how many statuses has changed since your last seen. So if you go, because client knows what you have seen. So while the session was open, whatever changes are there, let's pretend that is seen. But let's say if you close the terminal for whatever client I'm saying. On the server side, if you kill the process, obviously you can't reconnect. So you have to create a new session. So that session starts a process, and that keeps as long as session is valid, as long as the process is valid. So, so basically, this is the design. It's pretty standalone, nothing to do with
Like,
faster, other than the fact that. So maybe it will be Amitio/Purge. It can be, it doesn't matter. But I am going to put in fastn-stack because whatever company don't want to put in fifth drive, single repo to manage, organization to manage, whatever it is. They're going to put in fastn-stack. To see, I understood Push. Tell me any thought you have about Push or the cloud flow that I'm hoping to do.
yeah, so I I have not used cloud so extensively to comment on this, but I think the pretext that you said that the problems that you have had with teamwork that scrolling is not nice on it. I have never had those problems because I use Teamworks every day. The scrolling is the one thing that I use Teamworks for. And even if I'm connected to SSH, there is a Teamworks plugin that
I
even
have
if
been
you
wrong, and I'll try Tmux. Maybe basically the thing is, it's Mac terminal versus like,
right,
not thinking
terminals
that
do
you're living in a
have
digital
a
world.
scroll limit. Even Teamworks has a scroll limit that you can only scroll some amount of rows, but you can change.
What is the gesture do you use to scroll?
I use keyboard, so first you have to go in.
So
I
there is
don't
a
know.
whole scrolling through keyboard is
Is
scrolling
the
with no,
is
no.
the
So that's what he's saying. So you're not getting it. You're not using Mac the way I'm using Mac. And
right?
let's say, yeah, it's very so if you, it's like you create a product for doctor, you ask a salesperson what do you like it, you won't like it, right? Like you
Yes.
have to stay in that
Yeah.
category. So the category is Mac users who are using
No, but I
because
think even Tmux has mouse support. I don't have that enabled, but I believe there is. So you
I'll check
can
it out.
have.
So let's pretend unless you say कि Tmx में and I will myself also check. But you have
Yeah.
understood. So I'm
Ah,
totally happy to take it. If you say Tmx solved it, I'm happy to do it.
yeah. I
Okay.
get the
So
idea that you want to make something cloud specific that only shows cloud history and spawning a server is really nice and smooth.
and in general, initially I thought of calling it something cloud specific, so that it even not only knows it is a TTY, but it also knows this is a TTY with a question.
Right.
Because like it is sending some sort of a question my screen comes up like a dialogue comes up.
Uh,
So I'm thinking how does the dialogue thing works in what is called TTY, because like the dialogue goes away after that, right? So it comes up temporarily on the screen.
hmm,
You have all the prints are there, and then suddenly the dialogue comes up, and then it goes away. So I'm hoping there would be some sort of TTY which will tell you this so that I can um, do more interesting stuff. So I'm coming from, so most likely it deserves to be inside the Amity world, and it has to become, it will become a lot more cloud. अभी मैंने उसको cloud agnostic बनाने की कोशिश की.
right. Yes.
I thought, okay, let me just make a shell script and just and but in future we can, and in fact it's useful for other cases also, right?
Hmm,
Like I'm not trying, what I'm trying to say is ki I want this mode to be the default mode in our shell,
yeah.
so that you have like even for SSH and Tmux, there is no policy on sessions and all of that, and I feel like it's pretty wild. Whatever, do whatever you want to do, right? Like I'm always more opinionated about like let's create something that at least my company will use, right? Let's create some guideline, right? Which is very opinionated. So I'm trying to say ki to me every command that you run, let's say if I ever run a command, let's say if I run fastn ssh vim, or let's say server namespace vim file name. Do I ever want this to automatically die because the session has collapsed? Like just rethink the whole mental model of peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer means you don't have stable internet connection. First of all, this is
Yeah.
absolutely must be taken as a basic premise of. Whereas in regular SSH is all connection oriented. It's very and because connection can die, your program can die. You always has to know. You have to be very careful to do it right. So I feel like why do I bring that whole thing of these are all limitations to me. So to me, the Persh thing is the right shell. So whatever shell I will give you in when you say SSH space server name only, and I'm giving you bash or whatever. So the shell that I want to give you, I want you to persist.
Right.
So I wanted exit from a shell to be so it has to be a kill explicit shutdown shell, close the shell now, close this session. And that way you can have so many sessions and leave them on the server. Obviously the PID can die, so it can't be left on the server. But I don't know. So I just feel like this is better than just use no hop or tmux or just learn those three things, right? I'm thinking I never thought why is this guy dying, right? Like
Yeah.
unless something is really happening, there's nothing bad has happened, right? Like the Vim process has not died. If the Vim process dies, I get it. But Vim is not dying. My network connection flaked, and now my Vim has died, and my swap file is suddenly there. I'm just thinking we have learned to live with this bad experience. So this thing, why should we assume that is the right thing? And all of that can be solved if we just assume that tmux is the default for SSH. Imagine that if tmux was the default for SSH, then your life would have been so much easier, better. I just feel like that. Anyway, so that is just one idea. We can
Huh.
go for that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll tell you the other idea.
Okay.
This idea, I'm calling it Kosh. Okay. So PRSH 5 letter and KOSHA Kosha 5 letters. So don't ask me why.
Okay.
I am not.
Sure. Huh.
But yeah, so Kosha, spell Kosha. Again, Kosha would be fastn-stack / Kosha and a independent CLI, which has kind of so far nothing to do with fastn, but
Okay.
possibly used from fastn internally at some point. And actually, Kosha would definitely be used with fastn on day one. So Kosha, first of all, Kosha is like account and mailbox. It's a thing that you create. It's like a repository. Okay, so that's what I went with. So it's a repo. It's almost like a version control blah blah repo. So Kosher is like Git, but like trying to solve it, but in a very opinionated Git for a specific purpose. And the purpose actually for Kosha was AI. So I believe the time of documentation to be read by human is gone. So all the documentation anywhere ever created, which is written for users, is just well, it's token load overload for the AI, right? Like they
Yeah.
learned the stuff. Like why are you explaining it? Like you can explain something in a lot shorter to AI. AI gets it in the first paragraph. You don't have to write the whole 3,000 word article explaining that, right? So Kosha comes from this new realization that all the knowledge that I'm giving you, right, which you need to operate, let's say with like a Rustme, this is how we do, right, should somehow belong to some sort of push, and I should give you access to push that are relevant to your. Um, it's a very much like basically what I'm trying to say is whatever role that Git and GitHub repo or Git repo played for software,
Okay.
what is the equivalent for knowledge? And I am saying that now AI needs knowledge from. They don't need code from. They can write the code from. So AI is all about how do you organize knowledge. And so the Kosha is basically an attempt in that direction by being acting like a Git where you can store your knowledge files, which is basically markdown files, which are basically, so we are having some sort of, let's say, Kosha ID, because each Kosh has an ID. And so far, let's pretend the Kosha ID is kosher amity.com/ let's say guideline markdown spacing.
Okay.
Okay. This is the kosher ID. So this is a URL. So basically think of kosher as a weird mixture of HTTP and Git combined. It's like a Git which also does serve. Okay. So like an HTTP interface is also available to you. Kosher is like acting like a Git plus Python static site server. And tomorrow exposed over P2P. So listen to I know. Let me keep talking so that you'll get some of these things.
Yes. Okay.
The kosher ID now looks like kosher : something. Okay. And if you have fastn installed, this would be a valid URL that you can open also. So it will be a clickable URL. Obviously, you can even say, okay, why do we not just simply use HTTP and do it in a totally different way? Because kosher has some more APIs than it can do more than, because it's a full version control also. It can even do like create a change request or do a git push or give me all the versions of this file or give me all the change for this file, show me all the change requests in which this file is being modified, and for this change request show me all the merges. So basically what we are doing is, we remember from day one we had a whole version control. We have been saying we have built version control system. So
Yes.
we are taking our entire version control system, the three-way merge, the tracker, like multiple two or three times we have implemented a version control system. Kosher is like our fourth re-implementation of our version control system. So it will have basically a database. So kosher will have, so basically you will say fastn space create kosher, the way you will say create account or create mailbox, right? So create mailbox is there, create machine is there, and so on, right? So we'll have a create kosher. So you'll say create course. I'm giving you the integrated version, but you can also say course in it, which would be create course. So fastn create course and kosher in it. So you can install kosher independently, and fastn will also link to it. So kosher init will have a kosher home, obviously, and it will initialize it with, it's like a git init types, but it will be in tilde slash kosher, let's say. But kosher init can be done in a current folder also, doesn't matter. Those are minor semantics. So kosher init will have a folder for that kosher. And for kosher, the backend would be git. So now I'm like taking that simple call. Key, I don't want data to be stored in SQLite or have a server. I want the data, kosher data should be stored in Git. That's the most fundamental decision that we have taken. Because it's the most logical thing. Git is the, you're managing a bunch of text files with change requests, etc. So Git is a logical kind of store for that information. So for every kosher that you create, you will need a corresponding Git origin. And obviously it could be a Git origin or a folder where you have checked out or whatever. Let's pretend simplest scenario. It has a Git origin and it needs a branch. Maybe it will manage. So it will work with a single branch, by the way, and a single folder. So it is not going to create branches and stuff. So even though we have change request, it will work on a single folder. I'll tell you why it was a very important decision that I've taken. And it will be, so you will pass it the name of the repo, the name of the branch, and the name of the path, which might be slash or any folder that you want, which is where, so all the kosher ka jo input output hai will be happening inside. So kosher init will clone that repo in tilde kosh home. So in kosh home, it will store the checkout, and yeah, mostly it will check out that branch and it will store the information folder and so on. So that is in a kosher home. And when it is happening through fastn home, so your $fastn home / kosh / amityu will become my kosher home, right? So when we integrate it, so let's again recap. So there's a kosher home, you do kosher init, took a git related parameters, checked out some git repo, checked out some branch, looked at a folder. Now you have a bunch of commands. So the simplest command is get or read or whatever. So which is available to you at kosher : ID 52 of the quotient. So each quotient will get an ID 52. That when it is integrated through fastn. So when you're running just the quotient, it may not give P2P. It may also be key will invert the model, and we will not launch fastn space quotient command. We will only have quotient command, and the quotient itself will be fastn aware. So I've been thinking if some other new kind of device wants to get attached to our network, does it have to be written as part of fastn code, or can it be this? So basically, we are creating a network of clusters and networks of stuff. So is that network only restricted to fastn code, or you can write your own code, your own binary or whatever, which is becomes truly native equivalent of my network, right? So how would that work? So I'm actually open with that kind of design also. And so, for example, when you run Django, the Django should become like one possibility is that Django immediately becomes like a device, HTTP device or whatever, and gets registered to with your store cluster manager or whatever, so that other devices can discover it, etc. And every time Django starts, it will register itself if the service has gone online, and whenever it goes down, it says gone offline or deleted, whatever. And then it can have the allowed ID 52. So Django will by default not either it will be in public mode or it will be allowed mode. Allowed mode where it will only accept. So that way any process can, and it might need some like for example in Tailwind, if you dynamically start a new server, it should become like so basically here the problem statement, we have moved away from Kosha and talking about some
Yeah.
general device. Let's forget that general device management thing and stick to Kosha. So at some point Kosha will become a general device, but for now it's a standalone CLI, which means when let's talk about the CLI parameters. So we have discussed Kosha init so far. So there's a Kosha init which works on Kosha home, and it needs Git. Now will have a command called, let's say, Kosha and the path. It's like a Kosha curl equivalent. So Kosha space, let's say amity.com/guideline/md/spacing. So if you enter this command, Kosha space amity.com/ let's shorten it guideline. So this is it will fetch the guideline from Amity from the right place.
Okay.
Okay. Now amity.com could be an alias that you have given in when you created a Kosha init. Okay. So what is the logic of Kosha? I'm trying to tell you. The Kosha command, when you run Kosha space amity.com/guideline, what it does, it will first look at amity.com is an alias in my tilde home ke andar Kosha ke andar pada hua hai. So there might be an aliases folder in your Kosha home, which will tell you what is swiftrai.com, etc. Or amity.com can have DNS. So on a DNS level, or the Kosha ka first part would be an ID 52. So there are 3-4 ways to access Kosha. If you have Git access to that Kosha, you can just do a Kosha in it and get the Git on your machine. But the thing is, obviously you'll have to, because Git is managed there, so you'll have to keep doing Git pulls. And this entire scheme is not multi-user friendly. The Git. So let's talk about Kosha Git storage. So for every Kosha in Git, there is a branch and a folder that Kosha is maintaining. So let's say if the folder is request is guideline. So and let's say my Git repo is Amity/ let's say Kosha. So the Git repo is Amity/Kosha. मैंने बना लिया. Or we can have a fifth-try or fastn/Kosha also. Right? So the corresponding repos in corresponding. So when I've created a Matthew, that repo has been checked out. When I do any command, so it will do basic operations like it will look on the disk. So inside that folder, there is a current version of each file. So let's say a folder called main. So in the Kosha folder, for that repo/branch/folder combination, for every Kosha folder, it will have a folder called, let's say, current, which is your main equivalent. And inside current is a file called guideline. MD. So when you say kosher space amity.com space guideline, it will look in Malay Home that structure, and then it look for in my repo has been checked out, so my repo is there, so it will uh, add a what is called it will see ki guideline is in Amityu, so Amityu ka folder is slash Malay slash Amityu. Inside that, let's say the folder name is fastn, so inside I go to the fastn folder. Inside fastn folder there is a folder called current, which contains a file called guideline.md. So this is what kosher command is giving you, a simple indirection for a simple level in the beginning. So let's say if you have a kosher for fastn, a coach for fifth try, a coach for Amityu, even Amityu can have a coach for Python coding and another coach for Rust coding, for all you know, right? I might not have a super coach and I might create smaller coach. And each coach is like a repo, GitHub repo. So how and when will you create a coach is the same answer as how and when will you get a GitHub repo, right? Like if it makes sense for you to put everything in one big coach, or do you want to have smaller coach, up to you. So, and each coach has a name, alias or whatever. And that aliasing you have, and for each coach, for let's say currently protocol is only Git. On the first day, we will only support Git. So whatever aliases you have added corresponding to that Git repos will be checked out and stored in your single place. And any command that you know. Now you are saying ki, the lookup command is your primary command, which is kosher space amityu.com/guideline. So it will automatically look in the right folder and show you the content of that folder. It's just cat's equivalent to cat. So intelligent cat. So this is the first thing, and then you can have things like you can edit the file, obviously. So it will also have kosher space edit command or something which will launch the editor. It will obviously be version controlled, so it will like while you are editing, someone else has edited the same file. If you both try to save, that one of the saves will fail, and it will do a three-way merge, and you'll have to resolve the conflict, and then it will go. So our kosher edit command will modify the file. So right, so it is giving you so you're not never going to cd into that folder. ये fastn वाला kosher कहाँ पे है, वो सब checked out in your kosher home somewhere, and you're just using the kosher edit. So I will write kosher edit amityu/guideline, right? So my experience is very clean on my laptop. So so I edited the file, and as soon as I edit the file, obviously I'll have to provide some sort of commit message. So when I'm editing a file, I'll provide a commit message as well. And now immediately a commit and push will happen in that repo. So in the amityu/kosher, like guideline.md has been modified, and my commit message has been used to create a commit and pushed it to the server, right? And it will do a pull and rebase. But the assumption is that kosher is not being edited on more than one machine. It must be used in exactly one machine. So that is a major assumption here. And the main reason behind that assumption is that in future, most people will not check out kosher on their machine. When fastn is there, peer-to-peer is there, then the kosher would be remaining on fifth try server or Amityu ka koi server hoga. So whichever laptop I'm using, I'm not checking out that, because that creates local state. So then it'll be like who is merging it and blah blah. So to avoid more state, because kosher access is very, and the network I will always have. So every time, so most of the time when I'm doing kosher edit, it is not editing locally, it's editing over the network on some random machine. Okay, so kosher ka you've seen edit. Then we have a concept called change request in kosher. So we don't necessarily have to go to the whole our Git design. Change request, change request. Previously, we change request had an ID. This time, I'm saying change request will have an alias. So every change request have to have a unique alias. Just whatever, right? So and obviously you can see. So the reason we have said ki one kosher cannot be edited in multiple places and Git, etc. All of that is to make sure it can be used with Git without a problem. And also, we have to realize that Git has a feature limitation. So we can't use Git branch to manage change request.
Git branch may you cannot do partial commits, partial merges.
Yeah.
Whereas in our system, we want partial merges. So we will support partial merges. And so therefore, each file will simply be, each version of the file will be stored in a single branch. So for each branch, there would be a folder in Git. So therefore, any modification you're doing is happening in that single, from your point of view, this is just a folder. From Git point of view, it's just a folder. But from Kosh point of view, it is a folder containing multiple branches, or rather, so that way there would be some layout. So depending on which file you're modifying in what branch, a corresponding file would be created and stored in Git. And every change you do across any this thing will be stored in your main branch or whatever branch you have specified for this. And any change you do, it will keep on doing an immediate commit and push to the server. Okay, so this is the basic Kosher ka design with already hinted ki kal ki date mein it will have a networking feature. Okay, so Kosha will be, and when you have Kosha, you can also say Kosha open, which is open browser, and then you can see Amitiva content in the browser also. So so Kosha ke saath mein you can interact either through CLI or tomorrow through peer-to-peer and through HTTP locally or HTTP again peer-to-peer. So in all way you can interact with Kosha. All you need is a fastn running on your machine, and it will run it as a server and peer-to-peer also. So Kosha folder will only be doing Git push and review merging and all of that version control related stuff. It will not be doing any networking or HTTP. I mean, it might do some HTTP. It will give you Kosha access, let you browse the Kosha access from folder also, from browser also. But ultimately that would be simple plain HTTP. It will not be a peer-to-peer HTTP. It will be a simple HTTP but most people will not use Kosha through Kosha, will use fastn Kosha. And there we solve all those networking problems. So the idea is that we are creating a new universe of hyperlinks. And these hyperlinks are special. They are, so normal hyperlinks almost assume HTTP. And obviously, what is called HTTP is problematic because, and also domain name usually, like, or IP address. Putting IP address or domain is both bad, basically. In when you're constructing hyperlinks, you have first made an assumption that we will only use HTTP to access it. I am breaking or loosening that assumption. I'm giving you multi-protocol access to the same link, right? The same link can be accessed by Git if you have Git access. Same link can be accessed via what is called HTTP if you have HTTP stuff. It can be accessed via peer-to-peer, or it can be accessed through just direct CLI folder access if you only have folder. So somehow it is more, but what you're writing in your documentation files. Today the fuck up is key because of the way hyperlinks are constructed. They are so tied to the port and IP and stuff. Here our this thing would be tied either to the ID 52. So every Kosha should have a unique ID 52 or a domain. So this democratizes stuff by saying that most Kosha can just use an ID 52, or it can have an etc host file. So it will say that my Kosha is referred by the whole world as amityu.myrandom_id. It's like a username. It's not tied to domain name system. So anyone can use Kosha // and let's say amityu my ID, let's say /guideline. So like the first part can be anything. It is just that the whole world should have a consensus. When they are mentioning that Kosha, they should use that Kosha URL. That's the only limitation that I'm putting. If within the same Kosha, you can use a relative path to mention documents within the same Kosha. But if one Kosha wants to refer to documents in another Kosha, right? One website wants to refer to another website. So normally links to a same website can be /, and you don't have to worry is it IP address or domain or whatever. So you have a beautiful world or relatively better world in HTTP when you are doing local testing, because everything is /. But when you start doing across cross-domain link structures, then your links are always fragile or they don't work, or they'll be like, okay, this is in a different branch and so forth. So I am trying to solve all of those problems by saying, in fact, our kosher link protocol also supports branch. So if you say Amityu, let's say kosher $/amityu.com/guideline, you can also say at, let's say, latest or whatever, at fifth try, whatever. Let's say मैं branch change करना fifth try guideline या जो भी. Obviously, it is short-lived because usually I will merge it, right? I will not maintain different guidelines as branches. I will actually create two different guideline files itself in the main branch. That is the right way. If I really have a different guideline for fifth try. But I can do either of the thing. And the beautiful thing is key, those kosher URL can be now linked from your source code. So I'm expecting all over the source code. Let's say if you are looking at source code and you want to understand the design for this, it's a very hard problem right now. How do you go from source code to a link that you can open in your browser right away to see the definition of what the hell is, let's say kosher ID, right? So whenever I'm doing kosher ID validation or test and function, whatever, right? So I can just link to, let's say, a URL kosher amityu.com/kosher/ID. Now, that is actually a valid URL, which you can use access through kosher. You can also access through HTTP somehow. You'll have to do some setup if you want to access it, because that's the only tiny problem. If you want to use, if you don't want to use ID52 in the URLs, how do we do that? One answer is domain, the other answer is etc host. So I am saying we can do that etc host to ID52 mapping and tell everyone, if you ever refer to my kosher, let's say my kosher is Amityu/Python. So I'll just say here it is kosher Amityu:\Python, and that's it, right? And just use that. And everyone who is using this kosher should do one setup, which would be your etc host equivalent. So our kosher command will look like whenever any name that you use, it will look in your aliases or whatever. So Amityu against ID52 you have put. So maintaining a kosher on a unique ID52. But what I'm referring it is some alias, and that alias need not be a domain name, and it can be just a what is called collaboratively agreed name. So you and me can call any kosher anything, as long as we always refer to that kosher by that name. We don't have a problem. It doesn't have to be a domain. It doesn't have to be an ID52. It can be any alias that you and me like, right? So for all knowledge, let's say for example, when I'm designing kosher itself, right? So there should be a kosher which will be like the product for kosher. Yeah, there's a kosher for fastn, or maybe within fastn there's a kosher for fastn language versus fastn compiler design, let's say. So you're getting what I'm saying. So there are a lot of repos we are creating. Each repo is like a website. So we are creating a universe in which, and there are multiple ways to access it. And all the content is going to store in Git. So this is like a website ecosystem, which is static, purely static. And it does support Git, all the semantics of the Git. And it does support HTTP access. So, and most likely it will provide theming through some means. So you've written Markdown file, but when you're running kosher, you can pass a theme file or whatever in configuration, and that will be used to render your Markdown file when you're rendering the Markdown in an HTML page. And that is available to everyone, by the way. So whoever you have given, so the only thing you have to ask yourself with respect to kosher is, do I have access to that kosher? So I might have a lot of kosher that you do not have access to. So we have to eventually give some access control, and inside kosher, when we implement P2P, we'll have some sort of allowed hosts which will say who has access. I will create a kosher for fifth try, let's say, and I'll ask you, give me your ID52 and my ID52, and I'll put them in kosher ka this thing. So these guys have access to it. So we'll not have created any domain. We will not have created any shared thing like an account on GitHub. We'll still have an alias that you and me agree on. We'll most likely put some fifth try, etc., so that it doesn't conflict. Because it's mutually this thing, and we can always change that alias tomorrow. Like, let's say it start conflicting with some famous person, we can just choose to give up on that alias. And so we have a single linking structure which allows you to. So it kind of, and in this, I was thinking about model wise. So I was thinking about, so one model I have told you is wiki model. Like a guideline is just a wiki. If you think about guideline is just a wiki. It doesn't have a blog-like model. So the other model is a blog-like model or a TIL-like model, where you are just writing a series of uh, like journal entries. So our system called Kosher will support both wiki model, where you can create a new document, which is just a standalone. You'll have to organize it however you want to do it, but it's just a folder in your thing. And then it has a new journal entry and update journal entry command, and each journal entry can have some folder structure or tag structure. So you can refer to. So that way, a repo is equivalent to the knowledge garden that you have. क्या नाम है इसका? Kosha is like a knowledge garden, right? A digital garden. What do you call it? Like people curate their
Knowledge
digital,
base.
huh? Knowledge
Knowledge.
base. Yeah, Kosha is all about knowledge bases. That's where it's coming from. Like Kosha is like your treasure, right? So we are saying the knowledge is your treasure. So what is knowledge? So I'm saying knowledge is the key. Most of knowledge is the key, and then we can have. So we can think about Wikipedia moving to Kosha, for example. Let's say. Okay, technically they can. They'll have to. And we'll probably create a mirror of Wikipedia on Kosha, definitely. So, yeah. So it has. So when it comes to knowledge, knowledge typically is composed of wiki and blog. So between wiki and blog, we cover most of the publishing requirements. So Kosha gives you both those interfaces. They're all text files, basically, whether it's wiki or blog, it's just text file. But obviously, Kosha CLI will index them. So, for example, if you have mentioned, let's say, the interesting thing would be like, for example, give me the link of list. So there would be a lot of queries you can write. Like, for example, give me a how many external Koshas have I referred to from my Kosha, right? Or rather, give me even a histogram of that. How many times I refer to Python versus how many times I refer to Rust links, right? So you can even ask things like, okay, this guideline, for example, now the guideline obviously will not contain my all guideline. Guideline will simply say, okay, my Python guidelines are in this file, my Rust guidelines are like, so again, then Rust guideline will simply say guideline number 1, guideline 2, which will itself have its own document. So I'm saying you have a file wiki tree, and there is a graph in that, right? Who links to what, which document links to what other documents. So you can just do a query to give me all the incoming links or direct incoming links to me, or all the recursive. So basically you can do all sorts of graph related queries for the wiki graph that you have, including that chart that can, what do you call it? Link chart. No? So
I don't know, but I get what you're talking about.
Markdown note taking tool. What is that?
Oh, Obsidian. They have this brain thing.
Yeah.
The name definitely includes the word brain, I think.
Brain chart, brain map, mind map,
Maybe.
mind map. It is.
Yes.
Map equivalent. Yeah. So yeah. So whatever it is. So again, like I'm thinking. So I've introduced two things, new things. One is persistent shell.
Yes.
We'll review tmux whether we need it or not need it. But I feel like we need it simply because I feel like I wanted to become a more cloud aware stuff. So whether it'll be persistent shell or I will give up on making it persistent shell, just simply call it cloud helper or whatever. To me, it is what it is. It is a cloud helper which runs cloud on my behalf. It might even answer, and I want cloud on top of cloud, etc. Also, every question that it asks, there should be another cloud who should review that and decide what to do. A lot of time that cloud might just say, go ahead with this.
Right.
I don't know what is the, but I have lots of ideas. So I'm thinking in that direction. So maybe we get lucky and Sparta push, and that's the right design, or we will use Kosha. So I'm going to write Kosha design. Kosha definitely fits very well with me because the whole like version control system that we built fully was lost so far in our universe, right? So it has cleanly come back. Kosha will be the holder of that. And also, like I strongly believe that the interesting thing is that while I have been so far calling Kosha, like a repo or a digital garden or knowledge, whatever base, what it is really in my head is actually it's a software. It's a software. It's a new kind of software. A new kind of software which doesn't run on CPU. it runs on inference. So basically, I can just it's like so basically if I teach cloud or any AI, so because I have so many ways to access Kosher links, right? So I can teach the AI. So the first thing I would have to do is to how to teach cloud to use Kosher URL, resolve the Kosher URL. You see, start seeing these links, it will not know what to do with that. So I'll tell them कि there's a Kosher on my local machine. I'll say okay, there's a Kosher what is called CLI. And if you ever come across a Kosher thing and you're confused, use the Kosher CLI. This is how you use it. So on my local machine, I can teach cloud to suddenly start. So in all my documents, in all my source code, I can now start putting Kosher links. So this will be like a phenomenal upgrade in like there's just no other way, right? Like think about what link do I put in documentation, right? Which will always resolve to the thing that you want in all sorts of scenarios, developer and production and all of that. Right? There's just no answer here. So Kosher solves that cleanly, but which also means key AI can also resolve that. Like so, AI when AI reading code, so AI will. So the context I don't have to keep on like for example when I say something I have to say be very verbose, and that's currently what they are saying. You create an agent. So currently AI cloud etc. tells you that there is a thing called agent feature or sub agent feature which you have to configure, and for each sub agent there is a markdown file basically. Okay. So I'm saying if but they don't have a solution for okay how do I take these sub agent that I've written for fastn and use some of them from my let's say Malai. I can't do that. So like the sub agents have a folder and you have to be in that folder, but cloud has no answer to how do you manage those folders. They just simply say comment them in your repo, which is good, but there's no reuse. And I have to like for example if I have to say it should be a clean looking Rust code, I have to fully define, right? Like in every repo, I have to go and define this. So I can create these text files, you can argue, and start copying them in different repos, right? But this is a horrible experience because I know I have so many copies of those text files that I have copied into so many repos. I don't even know what to enter. And reusability would be very garbage because obviously I'll be very inertia to add a new file.
I feel like we should take a break now.
I'm
Yeah.
done here, by the way. So I was just hoping to.
Yeah, I mean the recording has been going on for at least 2 hours. So I don't even know if I can upload this to YouTube. So